I'm that girl who knows focusing on the past doesn't help you with moving forward and keeping balance now, does it? If you just still have that festering past moment and you don't actually release it, heal it, acknowledge it. And while so many people want to move forward and buy into problems for the future, other people, and you can be doing both, you can be buying into problems in the future and also holding on to problems from the past, and it sort of steals you from today's balance and neutral, doesn't it? It kind of drains you, sort of like pulls you in two different directions where you're left with nothing to be present today. So you're not able to engage in your duties of connecting to people and uplifting them and being that ray of sunshine for them, because you're so distracted from the future and the past at some degree, right? So we understand that, and that kind of makes sense. And this is why our teams have been begging you for quite some time now to do the inner work, to release yourself from that density, release yourself from that distraction. And so many people still feel justified that they can't move on because something really big has happened to them in this lifetime. And I understand that. I totally understand that. And once you realize and empower yourself through it and acknowledge that it's your responsibilities to make peace with it and to have the bigger perspective, learn those lessons, see those experiences and whatnot. And then, you can grow from it and release yourself from it. So, fantastic times, isn't it? And my goodness, they have got a Santa's list for you today. So I'm trying to I almost felt like I needed to take notes and write them all down, because it just feels like there is just a freaking huge list of things. And I just don't know if I'm going to be capable of doing it all in one go. So there might be multiple sessions from me today or tomorrow. We'll see how we go. Okay. So anyway, much love to see you all again today. I can feel you all. And this is so interesting because while I'm apparently, from some critics, I'm supposed to just look aimlessly at one direction and just speak my mind. I'm actually still human and I'm still allowed to express myself however I want. So for anyone that is still judging, that's a really poor reflection on your own spiritual growth. So catch up, mature up, sort yourself out, and stop being in that really basic high school bitch level of judgment, because you're here to focus. And, I say that with much love. So I'm reading all of you. I feel like I feel like you're all in space, actually. This is a really good example, again, to help me. So the image behind me is all those little dots, not on Earth. I'm not seeing you on Earth, my friends. I am seeing you in the stars. I am seeing your soul energy essences. And so when I am using my eyes, I'm looking at all of you. I'm feeling into all of your frequencies. I'm feeling all into so much. And because I've done so many sessions where I've been channeling, and when they're channeling, they're doing the same thing. They're scanning all of you. They're scanning all of you to see where you're at. Are you absorbing this information? Are you using this information as just distraction while you fold your clothes, or something else? They know it all. And so while I've been just the vehicle sitting there exploring the way that they process things and how they sort of work, I feel like I have also learned from them about how to read and scan other people as well. Maybe I always had that a capability, but now I feel like I'm really fine-tuned in it. And so when you look back, you'll see that my eyes are flittering and I'm not looking. I'm actually not looking. Sometimes a plane or a bird will distract me and I will look at that, but I'm actually sensing into things. Yesterday, I was sensing big time into the horse collective and those souls that really needed a big hug, a big group hug from everyone. And my goodness, so many emails. It feels like half of you listening live near a horse or by a horse. And it's incredible. And I think those horses are trying to say, excuse me, big light worker friends, we're here too for you. We get you. And while so many of you think you can't share your truths and your higher perspective and your information about the new earth and how you have had your own sessions and how you've journeyed to the new earth yourself, you've seen yourselves on the new earth, and you've seen your roles and positions on the new earth, and also home planets, and also so much other stuff, you know what's happening in the future. Not only do you know it, you trust it, you believe in it, and that is keeping you balanced and neutral and focused on what you're here for now. It's not growing a shoe collection. It's not trying to find as many new addictions to have under your belt. So there's lots going on there, my friends. And I just love you all who you're suddenly noticing, holy shit, these sessions are mirroring what I actually need to pay attention into in my lives. Get out of my head, Joe, people will say. And I will say, it's not me, it's them, I promise. I'm just still the vehicle. So there's that. So epic times. And it's super exciting. Isn't it feeling weird to say that? Super exciting. We know what's going to happen because we're not just, it's going to be horrible and people are going to, have exit points. That's one perception. Yes, exit points are horrible from one perspective. Yes, absolutely. Until you remember what their souls are experiencing. And then many people are like, good on them. Look at them. They did everything that they wanted to achieve here before they exited. Oh, that makes me think maybe I should get a wriggle on. So there's that as well. And so it's very interesting times. They're wanting me to bring out now. I know that I sound scathing to the medical industry, and that's because I've learned so much about the medicines people are taking that are actually not empowering you, not even healing you, not even helping you, actually quite dangerous for you. And that's not me being all judgy. That is me literally telling you word for word what I hear in sessions. And so when you're being labeled something, let's just say, for example, depression, you've been labeled by society as being depressed because you're actually not jazz handsing with all of the corruption and the manipulation and the density and the lack of integrity and morals and just the whole disgusting, when you really awaken to the 3D way of life and it should not be like this, right? Talking to all of the volunteers here and all the other awakened people, morally and energetically how people have been controlled and coerced into following certain leaders and certain information, certain regimes and blah, 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 blah. It's not helping them at all. It's that horse again and that paddock again, feeling safe again within all of these boundaries and being led to think what they should think, being led to eat what they can only eat. And nothing that is going into that mind of that horse or that body of that horse is empowering that horse. It is still an ongoing, what is it called? Breaking of their souls, breaking in, whatever that is. So good news, it feels like we've acknowledged a lot of the horses and they feel quite at peace. So it's very interesting how quickly they can get over their past traumas by just being recognized. And, we all had a cry for them. We all felt sorry for them. We all could just feel so disappointed for them because they wanted to be the heroes for Earth too. They wanted to come in and razzle dazzle us with their impressive, steadfast demeanor. And, and really just be the lighthouses for us. But yet humanity loves to own things, control things, and not know how to work things, including our bodies, right? We're very much aware that most people don't know how to use their bodies properly or understand their bodies and what their bodies are telling them. So anyway, when you've been diagnosed with depression and then you go to the doctor to be able to be helped, they're not going to say, yeah, 3D life, isn't it a crock of shit? From a metaphysical perspective, isn't it just disgusting? They're not going to say that, are they? They're going to say something else. And I was reminded when I was talking to our beautiful friend about how decades ago, she was just, I think when you have children and you have young children, they're very taxing of your time, and you're worried about the state of the world for them to grow in, and you want the best, and you want them to be protected and nourished and empowered. And when you're looking at what your hopes and dreams are for your children, and then you see the reality of 3D with all of its manipulation and distruth and coercion and belittlement of their minds and their capabilities and their senses and all of that stuff that actually goes on, even though we want to trust all the professionals and trust all these industries and trust all these systems, they're just not, they're not what they're marketed to say. Oh, sorry, they're not doing what they're marketing and what we assume and have those assumptions that they are actually doing. And so, there is this interesting thing. So anyway, yes, watching the medical industries shell out now lots of antidepressants for people who are worried about the virus, right? So they're terrified of the virus, and so they're feeling really anxious about it because the mainstream media is saying be in your best state of terror constantly, please, we would love that from you. As you listen to our narratives. And so lots of people are jumping into antidepressants because that's what they think is their problems, is that they're just fearful of the state of the world. And in reality, yes, that's very valid, because you're still lacking the information, you're still lacking the bigger perspective, the bigger purposes of why the grand awakening is happening and occurring, and you really are just lacking community and being able to find unity and be able to talk to other people to actually make you feel normal seeing the illusions of this world and the other agendas. And it's a fine balance between being thrown into deep fear and worry and dismay about the grossness. I was just talking to someone else about how Dolores did know about the crimes against humanity for the children. In her sessions, absolutely she did. But what did she do with it? She didn't want to deal with it. She didn't want to even go there. And do we blame her for that? No, not at all. Not at all. And while she was trying to be an ambassador to show people that there were other beings out there and that abductions are actually, agreed upon soul contracts, she was knowing that people were freaking out just hearing about the good ones. And so, she was very clear that they wouldn't be capable of processing or coping with hearing about the bad ones, which are here and have interesting snack choices. So, she didn't want to go into that. She did not want to go into that. And she felt like until people were just ready to accept that, Earth's humans aren't the biggest thing in the universes, and for them to focus and to grow, there's a lot to be said there. Anyway, so the doctors back in the day actually would be saying things to people like, this is your perspective. You're only doing this to yourselves. You're keeping yourselves depressed because of your perception, because you sort of feel overwhelmed. You've got everything going for you. Look at your children, look at your lifestyle, look at actually what you do have, because right now you're just focusing on, on the challenging times. And so I'm just paraphrasing. And, I just know from so many people in sessions who have tried to have exit points early, they've had one amazing conversation from someone that's kind of shaken them and rattled them and thought, oh gosh, that's right. No, I don't want to do the exit points of a suicide. I want to do something else. It's just that a little bit of a shake up. And I am so impressed when I've heard doctors actually kind of push back and throw all of the perceptions and the perspectives of their patients onto them, instead of just like, oh, okay, that sounds challenging that you feel that way. Let's just give you all of this really full-on addictive drugs to distract you with. And so, of course, we know that no doctor ever would say it's your perception that's making you depressed. find some friends, talk to other people, they would never be able to be allowed to say that right now. They're just dispensers of medicines, and they just work for big drug companies. And you know that, you've seen that. And so many people still think that they're there to help them, but they're not there to listen. And then, of course, you go to a therapist and they will do the same thing, try to just give you drugs. And your bodies are fantastic. And so it is just about stepping into what's the most appropriate perspective for you to cope with. And yes, so many things are very challenging that people will self-medicate in one way or another. We know that sugar is a self-medication because you're trying to feed that inner child. And we know that sugar will swell your brain and then make you extremely depressed and struggling, very much struggling. So, doctors that don't talk about health and food choices, they're not there for you for health, are they? And so I always love hearing that some doctors used to be good at that. And I'm sure that there probably are some great doctors that are still there trying to help to give back self-empowerment to their clients over writing prescriptions. And so exit points, so many people who have tried to have exit points, if it's not quite right and you've still got lots of karma or contracts with other people, that's possibly when you'd have a walk-in, walk-out situation. I know many people recently who have had walkouts and walk-in situations, and it is all fine. It is, it's nothing to be ashamed of. It's a lot to process and go with. And instead of fully disempowering yourselves with more drugs, the soul has just gone, actually, time out. I think I just need to have some time out now. And another higher healed vibrational soul will come in and take over their mission and duty, because they have to. Because if you've signed up to be a part of, you're the one clog in this big wheel, if you miss these clogs and these clogs aren't now being of service and working as they're supposed to, that won't work. Naturally, it won't work. And so our teams are like, we're losing lots of clogs, and so lots of clog pieces. And so, we are working all together, and we're not independently working. We are all connected to each other. And so when you start missing some clog pieces, sooner or later, that whole wheel can be ineffective. And so, often those whole wheels are connected to certain subconsciouses. And that subconscious is like, what, I'm actually wanting to be able to be of service more in my own areas. And so then, that's when the farmer comes and harvests those tomato plants or whatever the analogy was. So it's interesting times, very interesting times. And, while we are here still being of service, this is, we should be really proud and, really see the honor in our roles. Because it is incredible, but it's not unmanageable, is it? It's unmanageable when we go into worry, fear, and doubt and pretend we don't know the outcome of things. That can be overwhelming. But right now we are in balance and neutral. We can see things for how they are and why they are. And the other day when they sort of said that, the people that are really triggered by Ukraine, they're going through other, they're reliving trauma from other wars. And so, they're having to overcome that, match that density and overcome it, right? So I think they've been pretty clear with that recently. And I really appreciated them explaining that to us, because lots of people who know that the mainstream media is not the one source of truth. In fact, source is the one source of truth. Our guides and our high dimensional beings are probably the one source of truth that I would trust over any 3D egos, because the limitations and the lack of integrity and transparency the egos have. So there's that. That's why I love listening to sessions and hearing what's going on. And it was really clear that they sort of said that some people are having to relive trauma, because remember, this is the last lifetime they get here, right? So this is it. This is their big shot. They've got to clear out all of their experiences and heal and overcome everything that they've ever kind of collected on their collections of lives here on Earth, okay? So, you know, it's a big deal. They're busy until they get distracted, and then they sort of lose their way. And that's fine too. I was talking to a beautiful woman, and I just still feel like she's a volunteer here, even though she's had other lifetimes here. And we were chatting, and she was just sort of dismayed about how intensive her sister has got with Ukraine, like really, really, really intensive. And I just thought, I'll just tap into there and see what's going on there. And, you know, why is she so reactive to it? And then instantly just saw it's awful. It's awful. Like, you know, really brought me to tears. So, you know, she was in, it was very clear, Yugoslavia. Now, when I don't even know how to spell Yugoslavia, let alone try and find out the history of it. And so, you know, I still have yet to explore that. But it was very clearly she was in a little house, little room in Yugoslavia, and she had 2 children. Her husband had already exited and perished. But so when you're still living these lives, you don't know that they're, you know, living their best lives in a different dimension. So we're still grieving for them because, you know, we think that's their final destination and that they no longer exist. And so that's not the case, obviously. So she was in a very dark room with her 2 children, and I think her oldest son was crippled and couldn't move. And so she couldn't evacuate and leave the township that was in some type of war. And so she was just there alone, hoping that someone would come and save them or help them. And she was just so terrified that she just got to be there and witness her children just slowly starving to death. And she was so determined to make sure her children didn't die without her. She just willed herself to keep living, and any bit of food she could find and get, she gave to her children. But it was so dangerous being outside with all of this horrible things happening outside that they just stayed within. And it was incredibly interesting because she did not want to die before her children. And so she willed herself to live beyond. So then she had to see, unfortunately, both her children starving to death in front of her. And then she allowed and released herself from the body. Awful. And so I can't believe I got to say that without crying. So when I just tapped into it with my friend to just be able to figure out why is she super triggered about Ukraine now? And it was like, it just brought it right back into this moment where she wasn't responsible just for her own exit point. She was responsible for all 3 of them. And it was very, very, very traumatic for the soul. And so, you know, her conscious mind still can feel into that heartbreak and that horrific experience. And so she has to feel the density and the horribleness of what's going on now. Even if it is happening or not, she is creating it again and imagining that is happening again for other people, and what she isn't aware of and she hasn't made the connections of. She's already lived a life like that. And so she is going to be going through the steps of grieving for that, feeling terrible for that. And then eventually at some point, she's going to start noticing that actually isn't her life now. And that she actually has got a safe home, a safe life. And, you know, the things that she used to think are challenging and hard seem quite easy and manageable now, considering she's just been in this dark density. And so, you know, it's very, very sad. I mean, how do you support someone and how do you shake someone out of that? You can't. You cannot. It's just like when practitioners try to rush clients through challenging situations in other lifetimes. You must honor each step of their healing and not push them through because of your discomfort. And so this is the hard thing. We love our friends, we love our families so much. And when they're really struggling as they are going into density from other lifetimes or even this lifetime, we can't shimmer them and hurry them along and push them along, because, you know, that is, they have to be doing it at a pace. But what you can remind them of is today, what they have today. We're not promised tomorrow. We've never been promised tomorrow. And so what are you doing with your mindsets and your perceptions and your activities and your light worker duties? What are you doing today in your conscious awakening hours? So it's interesting, and it also brings up a lot of information about how big light workers who are able to see the nonsense that's going on around them and not buy into it, because they can just see this is just surface veneer 3D temptations of drama and nonsense. A lot of big light workers have come into these really challenged families who have got shoot loads of other lifetimes that they have to overcome. And so you are almost assigned to coming in and helping these really challenged families, because they're really determined to get it right this time. And so often you'll come into these families feeling like, am I adopted into this family? Because I don't feel quite at home. Of course, you haven't been adopted. You're the biological family members, but it's almost like you're the black sheep. And often it seems like the black sheep are the light workers who are there to assist and to lead by example and to love and to show maturity and to you know, really truly lead that family out of looping into darkness, looping into dramas, looping into disempowerment and all that sort of stuff. But when it's them against you, when there's a dozen of them, and then you are feeling all their pressure, you are feeling all their stress, you're feeling all their anxieties, you're feeling all their pricks because they are still hurting, so they are constant cactuses to you. You know, it's a lot. And so when you've got those family duties and roles to help empower them, you know, you sort of think, God, how can I help the rest of the world? My family is driving me mental. So there's that. And, you know, I feel really compassionate for those people who are like, I can't believe I have to be here to help these people who are just so disrespectful. And if I have to try and get into their wavelength, I have to dumb myself down to just be with them in their sort of density. And it's very challenging, isn't it? So, you know, this has been shown to me many times with many different clients, you know, and it's really challenging, but super purposeful. And you signed up for it and you knew you could help them. You could help them the best way possible and to shine and to show them that you're not afraid of anything. You know, you still love them and you still got them and all that sort of really fantastic stuff. So there's that. Yeah, there's just still so much that they want to say. And they're also wanting to sort of point out that many people who can see me channel and actually can see me now, it's kind of given them, it's taken away the last excuse that the information from Conversations on Heaven on Earth actually is legitimate. And so they sort of wanted to and be like, oh, I just don't know. I can't trust them. Can't see the people, must be scripted, must be bullshit, must be whatever labels people love to lazily have assumptions on them. But other practitioners do know that this information, you know, that is definitely the subconscious, and, you know, that is a high dimensional being, and you can feel the vibrations and all that sort of stuff. And obviously not just practitioners can tell that. And when I was working with the level 3 practitioner for QHHT, you know, she instantly knew that when I was channeling, you know, that was valid. That wasn't just, you know, nonsense. And so when we did some sessions together, blind sessions, so I didn't even know what she was going to be asking me. I was going to close that blind. It's a little bit bright. So she wanted to do some sessions together where I was just under, and then she could, you know, ask lots of fun questions that she was really curious about that she didn't have the opportunity to ask before. And so some of them were about Jean-Benet Ramsey, I think. So she came into a session, and then Teresa Halbeck. And it was really interesting because they showed me what had happened with Teresa Halbeck. I think that's her surname. Sorry, Teresa. So, it was really grisly and not so fantastically pleasurable to know that people can, brutally murder someone. It's not nice. And so they came in, and as you know, when you're doing these sessions, you actually get a lot more information than what the words are. And so one of the things I struggled with was seeing who was there to kill her. And the hardest thing is getting out of that session and then finding him and finding his name and seeing what his position and role is for their community. Now, what do I do with that information? What do I do with that information? Isn't it hearsay? Isn't it just some random channeler's information labeling and naming someone who killed someone, 20 years ago or 22 years ago, whenever it occurred? And that was actually quite challenging. And when I rushed back to the level 3 practitioner to sort of say, oh my gosh, it's him, this is the guy. And, it felt like, it was like almost 2 years ago, I think, wasn't it? I can't remember when. And, what do you do with that? What do you do with that information? She just was curious. She didn't want to do anything about it or hold anyone accountable. And that's her choices. And I didn't really know what to do either. I don't know what to do either. Do I call the police and say, hey, so, I do this metaphysics stuff. It sounds really woo-woo, but it's very true in terms of my experiences and what I saw. And then, I had to talk to my partner about it and was pretty upset about it because it's like, yuck, this guy is getting away with it. And he's actually causing a lot of other innocent people a lot of challenging experiences. And then, I think I did some channeling about it. And then they were like, yeah, it's life contracts. And I was like, that's a freaking hard life contract for those people who are having to experience it. And I just, I think my heart goes out to the families, it's not a fantastic thing to experience. And so anyway, the reason why I'm bringing this up now, because I never got to talk about it, and it doesn't feel good, does it? In both of those cases, actually, people are, living. People are living knowing what they've done, but that's contracts, isn't it? So respect all contracts. But my moral compass is screaming, there should be justice. And then my 3D mind is like, well, remember Jeffrey Epstein. He's still getting justice. He's still getting his, penance or whatever we want to call what he had to go through now and what he has been going through now. So people think that they've gotten away with certain things because they're not in jail, but, it does weigh on your moral compass and on your, if I could murder someone and get away with it, then, can I really trust others? What is in other people's histories and skeletons? So, this has been such an interesting journey for me personally. And, you can imagine the challenges, right? You can imagine having that and not knowing what to do with it. And apologizing to Teresa. Because then I don't want to enable the bad guys, do I? I want everyone to be aware of who it is and all that sort of stuff. But anyway, so the reason why I'm sharing that with you and my little journey with that, those kind of sessions. And then we did more sessions where there was, lots of people that I actually thought were dead, who turn out to be alive. And then lots of people who I think are alive turn out to be dead. And that's quite interesting for many reasons. And so that was also sort of quite confusing. And then, when you don't want to accept, the crimes against humanity, God, that's such a luxury, isn't it, to not accept that and just think that's all nonsense. Because what do you do with it when you do have to accept it? Because then you clearly see where all the manipulation and all of the really horrible things that humanity has had to suffer and endure. And the majority of people don't even know it. It just sounds too ridiculous and too conspiracy bullshitty to even go down this path. And then you have some truthers that are distracting everyone to make it sound even more ludicrous. And then, you don't know what to think. And this is why lots of people rush to these sessions to figure out what the heck is truly going on. And we know different collectives have different information. We know that. And so then sort of like, well, where do you go with that? When different collectives get different information, what do you do with that? Do you care about what all collectives have to say about certain people and certain influences? You can just have one person of notoriety. And when you look at, let's just say that one person is that number or letter 6 or 9, So here it is. Here is one person who is that. And I can see that person from this angle. You can see that person from that angle, and everyone else gets to have a little peek see and see it from their perspective. And so that's really how the collective sees certain people, right, in certain situations. So anyway, my point is, someone messaged me yesterday saying how impactful talking to Kurt Cobain was, and that video really was helpful for them to be able to get over his exit point and understand it from the metaphysical perspective when you hear it directly from the soul. So they sort of asked, would I be open to doing more of those? And yes, that's a weird skill set that I seem to have, right? It must be purposeful and it must be helpful. And I learn just as much as you guys when they pop in and have interesting things to say. And I also did like that connection with Kurt Cobain. It was a real gentleman. And it was really interesting because as I sort of talked to this person about him, I could see and feel the archangel that he was connected into, who was his imaginary little friend, but it actually was an archangel. And so, lots of musicians are connected into that archangel. And again, the same thing, right? It's the same theme. Songs. Well, we don't want to look at our inner work closet because, boring. We can listen to a song and be taken on an emotional journey and an emotional roller coaster with them, right? So we can just listen to one sweet song. You can have a challenging time, like a density time. I don't know music, so I'm not going to even pretend to like label stuff. But the song they gave me to when I was trying to explain it to this person was when so the song they gave me was November Rain by Guns N' Roses, right? So you can hear this drumming that sort of gets in really sort of deep and kind of gets all worked up, and I can hear it in my voice, and I'm not even going to try and like say it or sing it or whatever, or try, because that's going to butcher the song, isn't it? But the intensity of the drumming and it kind of gets all and the words are, you're not the only one, you're not. I'm tempted to say it, but I'm not going to. And so the intensity of the drumming, and then you hear the higher frequency of it must be the electric guitar, and then it kind of goes up into a higher frequency. And so the broodingness and the intensity of the drumming and getting to the point and all that sort of stuff. And we all can think about the video of how, the wife was killed with the wine and all that sort of stuff. And for me anyway, it makes sort of a lot of sense that even just with one sweet song or one interesting song or one boring song or whatever you want to label it, songs have the capability of putting us into that matching density and being able to help us raise ourselves out of it from the end of the song. So it's almost like you're doing your marathon inner work by just listening to music. And so I know they've said, listen to some songs, go listen to some songs that will really uplift you. And I think, okay, cool, I'll listen to a song. And then you put the song on and it's like, really intensive, dark, moody, broody. It's not a love song. It's a breakup song or something like that. And you think, how was this supposed to uplift me? But when we know what we know now, we are seeing that they're putting us into that density to then be able to marinate us in that density to then kind of like shoot us out and hope that we overcome that density. And then, we will find uplifting songs that will uplift us. But it's kind of like, why do you need a bandage to then like have that stepping stone into higher frequency if you haven't kind of done that density work and released that density? And so they're sort of saying, you don't all just deserve sunshine songs. You do all deserve them, absolutely. But when you're on that precipice of like doing that inner work and releasing stuff, they will put you in to a density for you to then overcome it. And you don't quite even know what that density is, what you're overcoming. It may not even be yours. It may be just the stuff you've collected in your days, transmuting energy of Gaia or off other people. And so, super purposeful, but the power of songs is even more amazing than we could ever assume. It's amazing. It really, really is amazing. And so, yeah, there's lots to be said about that. Okay. So they're reminding me to say, even though I've done heaps of beings and heaps of souls have come in and we've had conversations with them, they're wanting to see what you guys are feeling, who you need to hear from now. And so I'm open to suggestions. Whoever you would like to hear come into a session to be channeled. Kurt Cobain enjoyed it because he is sick of still being misused. He was sick of being misused while he was alive, and he's certainly been sick of being misused by fake channelers and drama queens that are trying to, still use his name and his like notoriety. So much is going on, and people don't like being used. People don't like being abused and used, right, when they're living, let alone when they're dead. So there's that. And so when there is pure channelers that are respectful of their souls, they actually quite enjoy it. They don't actually mind it because they're like, finally, I get to speak. And that's important, because when they've been edited or censored or controlled and manipulated themselves, it gets sort of, you can imagine that there are those horses as well. We think a lot of these influencers and famous people throughout history all got freedom of speech. It's not the case at all. They've all had to live in these restrictions and confinements themselves. And so, they have lots to say. And I feel like lots of them are trying to like put their hands up and say, pick me, pick me, pick me. I have got lots of things to share with you. But then, do we want to listen to all their life stories just out of interest and novelty factor, because what says in Wikipedia is not the same in what these souls are saying? What are we wanting from them, and why are we wanting to hear from them? Is it to help us, or is it just entertainment and novelty? So, we've got to be respectful of these connections and not sort of misuse them for just, shits and giggles, even though some of the souls are like, oh, I love to be used for shits and giggles. And, because they just want to help you still. And if you don't have connections with them, they want to have connections with you. And so there is lots of them that would love to share their perceptions and what they're doing now and what they're going to be doing and how they're going to be helping. So anyway, I'm just going to leave that with you. You can privately message me if you want, or, public comments. I don't care. But however you want to think about who would be really appropriate and beneficial to hear from today without us distracting ourselves into future fears or to past frustrations? Who could we really hear from today that can help us to remind us of how powerful we are, to remind us that this is all our responsibility to do our light work and all that fun stuff? So I'm going to leave it with you guys now. Sorry for the long conversations, but there's still so much to be said. So much love to you all. And I really just enjoy these slower paced days where we are open and flexible for anything to occur, because we don't control what's going to occur, do we? And that was quite hard for a lot of control freaks to just surrender in and accept what's going to come. So, there's that as well. So I love you guys so much. Have a fantastic day. Treat yourselves always, and always look for the lessons and the experiences and the purposes of everything.